And so whenever a group of people get together, even though they're very spiritual people, all of their humanness comes out as well. And so there's a divine kind of friction that happens when people get together, and it's all the source of awakening. I've learned so much more about myself out of being in groups of spiritual people than I could ever have done alone. And I would say leading an organization, we've had some challenging things to walk through. This last 10 years has been a profound time of change for our organization. We moved, we changed our name. We're now going through the process of unifying with our sister organization, which is, all that process is almost done. We were split in 1954, so we've been bringing that back together. And that has been the challenge of two different cultures coming together to create a third new thing. But we've been able to walk through it, and I think it's very, very hopeful for the transformation of life on the planet. You know, that which is two can become one. And where there was lack of understanding and disconnection, there can be love and connection and the creation of something new. So I can't say that any part of my time has been without some kind of challenge, but usually because it just challenged my own skills and abilities and my willingness to tell the truth and be creative and all of that.
May I ask you something a little bit more challenging?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, this hasn't been challenging?
Specifically in our first episode on God, the thing itself, what it is and is not, there was a lot of us describing more so what we thought it was not than what we thought it actually was, and I think that could be for a couple of reasons. One is that when we're trying to describe the indescribable or the indefinable, perhaps it is easier to say what it is not. But I think there's an element of cynicism to that, where in that first episode, I think a lot of what was said was that it is not religion, and I personally feel that God is much, much greater than religion, and religion at best can be a characteristic of our personal relationship with the divine, but I think that there was a lot of basically an agreement that God was not religion. But you obviously have a religious faith, and what are your thoughts on that?
Did you say God is not religion?
Yes.
Yeah, I think religions are just attempts to understand God, you know, and live in alignment with whatever we consider God to be. So I'm in agreement with you about that. I think that as the Eastern religions say, they are all fingers pointing to something. And right, and certainly we can become very identified with our religion so that we are that religion. I am a practicing religious scientist, and I'm open to all of the philosophies of the world. So, am I answering your question, Isaac?
Absolutely. And okay. It's interesting that I mean, obviously, I see things similarly, or else I wouldn't have maintained my membership with this great family we have all across the world. But when I come across, actually, this is multifolded. When I first started going to the church, I went from being an atheist who found camaraderie with other skeptics, and then all of a sudden I found truth from a place that was actually called a church. And so I went from being in a place where the uber religious didn't quite understand where I was coming from, to all of a sudden those same skeptics who did accept me once I started using the word God and church and became comfortable using those for what I think they're more essentially the essentially true meaning of those words. Those same skeptics were a little bit put off, and sadly JR can't be with us tonight. He's one of our resident atheists on the show, and I still very much identify with the place from which atheists come from. It's just that I personally, and this is where it becomes a question, I personally feel that most of the atheists that I have known it wasn't that they actually didn't believe in God, they just really don't believe in the God that's been described to them. And so when we're having a conversation, they're translating the words that I'm saying into what they understand. And what they understand is that if you say God, then you must mean not Jewish, not Sikh, you mean Christian God, and or you mean one of the religions out there that has monotheistic beliefs, and they think that God is this entity that has human qualities, that's very jealous, very angry, and so what's been your experience talking to people that are atheists that you have great respect for and who can hold an intelligent conversation? What's been your experience with that?
In all truth, I don't have experience talking to atheists. I think I have, so I need to have one. Need to have the experience. I think that I have been in the world that I inhabit so fully for so long that really I haven't had any kind of long discussion with an atheist, and I would be interested in that. I would be interested in doing that.
Well, Celine.
Yes.
How are you doing, darling?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I feel like I need to catch up a little bit, so I'm just reading up on what you guys are talking about as much as I can.
Well, Reverend Kathy, I don't know if you've noticed, there's a thread where we can type to one another about what's being said. But Celine, if you're reading that, we have not been talking about ninjas and flowers, just so you know.
I caught that much. Well, I suppose that this last few months of life has been interesting for me because I have been my fiance's father just passed away not too long ago, and they're it's okay. Thank you. And it's been an interesting time because we spent a lot of time in the hospital room and watching people come in and out and prayer. And the only thing that I find very challenging is that I was going to ask, because I missed all of this, I feel as though I need to ask that it looks as though this type of spirituality that you're speaking of is not monotheistic, but a more open look at love as the basis. Am I correct in that?
Well, to me, monotheism means one God, and we certainly are monotheistic in that way. And we do talk a lot about love. Yeah, we do talk about love as, in fact, Ernest Holmes defines love as the self-givingness of God to creation. And so when we're about love, we're about the self-givingness of God through us. And so it's a very important aspect of science of mind, and different ministers will emphasize different things. But I think love is the reason why we're here, and what it's all about, where we came from, where we're going, and what it's all about. That's what I say about love.
And then there's no necessarily, do you look at all of the other forms of religion as all the means to the same source instead of being competing?
Yes, we honor all paths to God. Yeah, we say all paths lead to God.
Excellent.
And every path is valid.
That is my greatest challenge, I think, is dealing with the fundamentality. I guess it's funny to say it that way, but fundamentality that creates sort of an adversary kind of a system instead of an embracing system. And so that's my greatest challenge. And what I would like to ask you is, when coming into a profoundly religious circle, do you have any suggestions on how to create a greater openness towards all people instead of there being a sense of judgment that this person is not Christian or this person is not living up to these things, even though, they may be hypocrites? Is there a way to open people, do you think, to this concept?